Hello and welcome, star people. Welcome back to the Outlaw Astrology Podcast. I'm your cosmic detective and intrepid star guide, APM. And we've been on a long journey. We've talked about astrology from an archetypal standpoint. Already we've gone over houses, angles. We've gone over planets. So today we're going to step into the signs as archetypes. And we're going to be, I wouldn't say going deep, but just as a taste. I tend to like overviews. I like to look at the big picture first to figure out how details fit in. So signs are a part of that big picture. And it would be helpful to understand it archetypally for the sake of comprehension. And so, a little housekeeping before we get started. Follow us on Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Those links are in the show notes. You can subscribe to the Daily Stargazer newsletter for exclusive content. Link also in show notes. And please review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Helps others find us. And with that, on with the show. Alrighty then, so we're going to start with the signs as archetypes. There are 12 fundamental modes of archetypal expression in signs. There are 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water. These are the basic energetic qualities. The modalities are fixed, are cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal starting at the beginning of seasons. The fixed being the sustaining and more supportive and secure and stabilizing aspects. Those are the signs that follow cardinal signs. Mutable signs bring up the end. They end things. They're disruptive. They're mutable. They're change makers because they're making the way to start the cycle again, and they're also closing out the previous cycle. Okay? And so there are different ways energy can express itself. Now, signs and planets are not the same thing, obviously. Signs are more of a costume change, as it were, whereas planets are the character. They're the ones doing the acting, whereas the sign will give you the type of clothing and makeup, etc., that helps the sign best express itself, okay? So these are archetypal qualities. And so, basically, signs are archetypal qualities, planets are archetypal characters, okay? And so, that pushes us onward toward the 4 elemental triplicities. We've got fire signs, that's Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. This is inspiration and spirit. So what I'm going to do is go over them archetypally, and then I'm going to walk with the archetypal patterns, as it were. So, fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. The keywords and themes would be inspiration and spirit. Earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, manifestation and form. Air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, communication, patterns and concepts. I would also include ideas. And water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, emotion, connection, soul. And so the elements and how they interact and balance each other in charts, well, here we go. When we're talking about a conversation, we're talking about an aspect. An aspect is basically a dialogue between 2 characters, meaning, say, for example, Mars and Venus, those would be 2 characters having a conversation. The houses would be the stage, the signs would be the qualities or the costuming, per se. And so how they interact and balance each other, well, fire and fire, earth, earth, water, water, air, air, very supportive. Those are trines. Very Jupiterian energy. They are they feel natural and easeful because we don't have to step outside of our comfort zone too far in order to express them in a way that feels authentic to us. On the other hand, we've got an opposition. And that is very Saturn energy. It's delays. It is limitations. It's, okay, you've got all those strengths, trines, but you also have limitations or weaknesses, if you prefer. And opposition is Saturn energy. It's making you aware of that. Okay, yes, it's lovely, and here's this. Okay, so when we're looking at an opposition, we're looking at 2 elements that support each other, but they're also oppositional. So fire and air, looking at Leo and Aquarius, that would be an opposition. That's an opportunity to be aware of, say, the energies that we have in our chart. If we've got Venus hanging out in Aquarius, that is a very different energy than if that Venus is in Leo. One Venus in Leo, they're both peregrine. That's wild card energy, meaning it can vary wildly how it chooses to express itself. And on a personal level, it is harder to change that archetypal energy on a personal level than it is to do it collectively. And so elements interact and balance each other in charts by being in agreement, fire sign, etc., being in a maybe more of a heated discussion, fire sign, water sign, that would be Leo, Scorpio. That energy is the same mode, meaning they're both fixed, but they are in challenge. Now, archetypally, a square is very Mars energy. You're going to bump up against the world as you're trying to express yourself, because you're going to run into a lot of people who are different from you, who have different values, different life experiences, different frameworks and lenses by which they look at the world. And sometimes they look at you being you and go, ugh, no. And sometimes that ugh, no includes what is called a change back attack or a change attack, meaning you're doing this, being this, and the person doesn't like that, so they're hoping to shepherd you into a more easeful, for them, way of being in the world, which works out for them, they think, but not for you. Okay, so we're talking about aspects here. How energies can interact. On a simple level, it's just about a dialogue. Aspects are a dialogue. It is a conversation. Is that conversation someone agreeing, people in agreement, a trine, people getting to know each other, a sextile, exploring the possibilities, a sextile, not exactly agreeing, maybe in more of a heated discussion, doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, just heated. We have differing views, but maybe we can learn something from each other or expand our knowledge. That would be a square, very Mars energy. And then there's the opposition. We are aware of limitations. And maybe we project our limits on others. Maybe they project theirs on us. As a matter of fact, more than likely, absolutely, that's exactly what's happening. And also gives us a chance to make choices. Because now we can see it out there. Our behaviors, our thoughts, our thinking, our believing, our feeling. We can see it, and there's a greater chance of self-awareness, because that difficulty of an opposition is self-awareness. And so those are some of the ways in which the elements can interact with one another. Now, for an opposition, a trine, as I said, Leo to Aries or Leo to Sagittarius, that's a trine. Very enthusiastic, uplifting, inspiring energy. They can work together, they can talk together. Same thing with the earth, the air, and the water signs. That's a trine. But if we're looking at, say, Leo in a sextile with Gemini, well, there's not as much common ground, but there's enough there to be curious. Because alchemically, Leo, fire, and Gemini, air, play nicely together. And so there's that curiosity that Gemini brings. Hey, who are you? What are you about? Yak, 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 blah, blah, blah. Putting together patterns, communicating. And Leo saying, this is who I am, this is how I am, this is how I be. I have a temper, you should probably know that. And I'm going to need you to shine a little love on me sometimes, because sometimes even I have doubts about who I am. That's the Leo archetypal energies. as I am currently interpreting them in this example. And so that's more of a sextile energy. You're going to have to work it for it to work. That's why possibility. That's why it's very Venus energy. So you would use joy and pleasure, things that turn you on, interest you, would be a way of being able to work a sextile. A trine is like, oh, I feel good here, I like this, I don't see any reason to make any changes. The sextile's like, I'm not entirely comfortable here, but it's interesting enough for me to push forward because it's a bit of a quest, it's an adventure. This energy is very Venus energy. Yes, joy, delight. That's interesting. Let's follow that and see where that goes. Every great story will start out with someone getting thrown off course just a bit and having to find their way back home and then finding all this world that they didn't know existed simply because they veered just a little bit off course. That's a sextile. And so these are how the elements and play with one another in a chart, how they might interact, engage, and balance one another. Now, balance is not going to be perfect. Scales are constantly moving. They're always altering themselves. So consider balance not to be an absolute fixed state. Consider it to be something that's always changing, always moving. And what is balanced 5 minutes ago is suddenly now unbalanced or imbalanced right now. And what is imbalanced now can go right back to stability and straight out of stability to instability or flexibility. Okay, so how would we want to work with this energy? Well, let me start off by give us a few archetypes. Since we're here for archetypes, let's start that off before we delve into that piece right there. And so, when you're looking at Aries, you're looking at the warrior. I mean, that's Mars energy. But you can also see Aries as the trailblazer. They're always looking for the path with heart. You know, does this turn me on? Yes, bye, see you guys later, I'm going to climb that mountain. And everybody else around them might be going, wait, what? I thought we were going to lunch. I don't have the right shoes to climb up that mountain. I'm too tired. I just want to go home and drink tea and knit. I want to hang around with my cat. You mean that's the kind of energy that you're dealing with. Or we don't have a plan. So Aries energy is trailblazing energy, meaning trailblazer doesn't mean that they're always the first. They want to be the first, but it's not possible to be the first person to climb, to summit that mountain, because that mountain's been around for thousands of years, and certainly other people have wanted to climb it as well. But to the Aries person hypothetically, this is a novel experience to them. We're not talking about the whole of the collective. We're talking about personally for them. And so, trailblazer works in my lineage and also the way I practice. Now, Taurus is what I call the Earth Steward. And it is what you possess. Yes, absolutely. This is mine. That's yours. Hands off my stuff. But it's also, because it's Venusian a bit guided, it's also taking delight in the present moment, moving slower. It's moving slower for its own sake, just because you like it, not because you want to be hurried, because life has a sweetness. It doesn't always have a sweetness, but when it does, you want to savor it when it appears, because change is the only constant here. And if it's the only constant here, things are going to change, and so we might as well, when we can, with Taurus energy, steward resources, which include joy and delight. You want to steward your resources, use them wisely, so that you may better enjoy life. That's the energy. The thinker is Gemini. All the thoughts, all the time, fascinating. Now, what looks scattered to everybody else is not, in fact, scattered to a Gemini. And here is why. Because Gemini energy is curious. It's captivated by many things. It's all of the shiny, pretty things out there, and there are a lot. And I just want to taste all of them. I just want to nibble here, nibble there. And the whole point of that exercise is sort out what the Gemini actually likes. What do they fancy? What are they into? You're not going to find that out if you do not taste of the smorgasbord of life. Okay? Or have experiences. Yep, I love this. Nope, not for me. That's the whole point of existence anyway. So Gemini, the thinker, always thinking, always curious, inquisitive, chasing that pretty bright, shiny thing. That's the energy. And with that energy comes also downsides. Since Gemini is a shape-shifty energy, it's always on the move. It's air. It's meant to move. Air's not meant to be stagnant. If it's stagnant, it is that dreadful summer where everything is sticky and humid and the air is just viscous. You can almost touch it. No thank you to that for me. And that is also stagnation in the brain, in the mind, in the life. And so Gemini energy is air energy. It's meant to be flowing. It's meant to be moving. It's meant to not stagnate. And if something is stagnant, it is meant to move that stagnation out. Okay? And if I'm going to go back, Aries energy is to be the first. To be the first of their group. To be the first of at something. Even if thousands of years of culture says this is not possible, we're talking about novel to the individual, not novel as a collective. And so they're meant to trailblaze. They're meant to go out there to be first. They're meant to bump up against the world and to find their courage, to be independent. And yes, that is going to be a challenge with a society, with a collective that seems to be very much interested in conformity and does not celebrate diversity or differences. And Taurus, yeah, they're stubborn because they're creating stability. And if they did not maintain, if they weren't persevering, if they were not determined, they would not be able to maintain anything. Now, human beings, you need structure. A small amount, it's on a continuum. And so Taurus is trying to provide what a fixed sign is meant to provide, stability. And so that stubbornness is, yeah, I'm not moving because this matters to me. I value this, and I understand that you don't, but I do, and I'm going to stick with it. But you're free to run on if you want. That's Taurus energy. Now, if we're skipping over Gemini, we're going to Cancer. We're looking at the mirror. We're also looking at the nurturer. And that is energy meant, you got a small seed, you want that to turn into a big seed. You're going to need to water it, love it, care for it, talk to it. I talk to plants. I do that. I've always done that. I find that when I talk to them, they grow far more luxuriously than if I don't talk to them. When I don't talk to plants, nothing seems to do anything for them. But when I'm around them talking, hey, how you doing? What's going on with you? Like I was having a conversation with my pet cat or my pet dog or what have you. I do the same thing with a plant, and I find that it works. So nurturing a seed into an oak or a willow or an ash tree or Yggdrasil, if you like. That's the whole point of that. And Cancer as a sign is also about that seed of emotion within. To form connections, but to do so in an emotionally intelligent and an emotionally aware way. The seed they're trying to develop is emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, which will make it easier for them to be intuitive because Cancerian energy is focused on the gut. Leo is our artist. They are all about self-expression. And it is also self-actualization, individualization, understanding that, yeah, I'm part of a much bigger whole, which is life as it exists in the cosmos and as it expresses itself in the cosmos, but I am a unique emanation of that because my nervous system is a completely unique nervous system and does not react the way everybody else's nervous system reacts. And so when I taste a raspberry or a cherry, it's not going to taste the way everybody else's tastes, even though, I might assume that it does, and it will. And so that's the artist. How do I put my unique stamp on things? How am I seen and heard in a way that feels authentic, therefore right for me? That's artistry. The way that a zebra has all of those white and black stripes, if the zebra does not have albinism, but it has black and white stripes. That is, creates an illusion that allows it to continue to exist. And so that is a genius. The same way an eye cell in a bunch of different undifferentiated cells knows it's an eye cell. It's going to become eyes. Most of the time it becomes eyes. It knows that. There's a genius, an intelligence there. And so Leo is dealing with its own unique intelligence, which is, I am here, and this is how I show up in the world, and this is how I want to be in this world. That's artistry. Virgo is analytical, grounded, and looks around and says, what can I change? What needs mending? What needs fixing? What can I patch? Things don't last forever, and sometimes things are inefficient. Sometimes things are extraneous. And Virgo energy is always improving, correcting, refining. They are idealistic energy. So I would call this also two things. I'd call it the advocate. I'd also call it the healer. Because when things are broken, it's the Virgo energy's pleasure to patch, to heal, and to hold steady to an ideal, even if that ideal is out of reach. So also a bit idealistic. And I say advocate because sometimes someone needs to speak up for the broken, that which is in need of repair. And Virgo energy happily will do that because it's being held to a standard, an ideal of how things should be rather than how things are. Now, we step into Libra energy, and Libra is the connector, the peacemaker, the harmonizer, the person that walks around the party, joins every group, talks to everybody, and somehow makes everybody feel as if they're the most wonderful thing in the world. And if there are factions, Libra energy can step into that and build bridges. At their best, they're building bridges. And sometimes building a bridge also means playing the devil's advocate. And sometimes that also means, when playing the devil's advocate, is to test out theories, to test out ideas, if everybody's agreeing, somebody has to be the dissonant voice if we're going to have a discussion. Otherwise, agreeing voices in a conversation is not an interesting conversation. It's a silo. It's an echo chamber. And so Libra sometimes, using the energy of its opposing sign, which is Aries, will play the devil's advocate to make things more interesting. And it also shines a light on what everybody really believes. And maybe, if we're lucky, people will start to understand one another, and that is what Libra energy is about. So, yes, it can be the lover, but I feel that's a very stifling label for Libra. They are the peacemaker, the bridge builder, the connector, the diplomat. Scorpio is mysterious, enigmatic. They are interested in intimacy. They want to merge with things. They want to merge with ideas, with people, with things that they love. But they're very discerning. Some people might read that as guarded. And the archetypes that they stand for is the alchemist, the hypnotist, the psychologist, the psychoanalyst. They want to know the why, the deep why. They're not interested in superficiality. They want to see the depths. They want to know, how deep does this go, how far, and where to. They want all of the answers. I mean, they're not going to give you all of the answers of them, because that's something that a Scorpio believes you should earn. If you want to be part of my inner world, you want access to it, there is a treasure trove of beauty back here, and knowledge, and mystery, and wonder. But you're not going to get it just by, having a superficial, hey, how you doing conversation with me. I require something more than that, and you're going to have to make more of an effort. You might consider this like Stephen Strange in the first Doctor Strange film. And he arrives, having on the doorstep of the Ancient One, having, lost everything that has mattered to him, how he's identified himself. He has lived his entire life rationally. And he meets the Ancient One, who tells him everything he's ever believed is not entirely accurate. It's not inaccurate, it's just not entirely accurate, and that his mind is not going to take him any further. And that's scorpionic energy. And at some point, after the Ancient One shows him, that he has a spiritual body, when he only identifies with himself physically. And that when she pokes his third eye, or they poke his third eye, and suddenly he sees and experiences things beyond his comprehension, he says, "Teach me." And the Ancient One says, "No," and tosses him back outside. Because traditionally, historically, you're going to have to earn your way in. And just because you want it now, because I've shown you a few things, I don't know if you're committed. How committed are you? Are you committed? So now you got to prove that commitment. That's very scorpionic. The Sagittarius follows next. They are the explorer. They are the comedian. They are the philosopher. They are the ethics professor and scholar of the zodiac. I have a sweet spot in my heart, a soft spot in my heart, and a sweet one too, for the sign of Sagittarius, because two of my favorite people who are close to me were Sagittarians. And Sagittarians are famous for being blunt and outspoken and opinionated, and other people might read judgmental and preachy. Now, I have never experienced that, by the way, and two of my favorite astrologers are Sagittarians, born in the second decan of Sagittarius. And I heard them once say that they are different than typical Sagittarians because they have a Capricorn rising and makes them more grounded. Now, I am mentioning this because there is no such thing as a typical Sagittarius, and there's no such thing as a typical Aries, or a typical Taurus, or a typical Scorpio, or a typical Capricorn, or a typical Pisces, etc. You get the point. There is no such thing as a typical anything. Because someone can be born on the same day, but they're born the previous year, or 2 years prior, or 2 years after our hypothetical first person, and that's going to be a totally different chart. Charts do not tend to repeat perfectly. And even a few minutes, your moon can move. In a few days, your moon can move. Even in a few hours, your ascendant is going to be a totally different ascendant. And so, there's no typical about this. Okay, end rant. Sagittarius, the explorer, the globetrotter, the eclectic, the eternal student, curious, inquisitive, but more interested in the big picture than, say, Gemini would be. It's great. Ideas are lovely. I love ideas. And they should be underneath my feet. If I cannot verify these ideas with life experience, what good is it? What use is it? And when Sagittarians are excited, because they're a fire sign, they get enthusiastic. And when they're enthusiastic, they have a tendency to be very pushy. They're not trying to push their ideas per se, unless some other aspect of the chart says differently. They're not. What they're trying to do is share something that just fires them up. They're so inspired. They're so enthusiastic. Yak, 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 blah, blah, blah. They just can't wait to share it with the world. It's amazing. And because they're enthusiastic, and other signs or other people with other chart placements might not understand, this enthusiasm is not dogmatism. Yes, I found something interesting. It's purely enthusiasm. I'm inspired. I'm on fire, etc. But it doesn't necessarily mean dogmatic. It just merely means they're enthusiastic, and you caught them in the moment when they're at their height of that enthusiasm. If you just wait a bit, it'll wane, because everything does. Capricorn is the CEO, the builder, the craftsperson, the workshop leader, that sort of thing. That energy is goal-oriented. It's meant to point at a star in the sky and said, I am going that way. Anybody want to come? I'm going to build a rocket, and that's where I'm going. It is putting in consistent effort, as much as energy will allow, to go toward this single objective, and to do so continuously until the objective is reached or until that goal shapeshifts into another goal. And so, meant to clear off all distractions, because Capricorn energy isn't just about, they're not about just work, okay? Just not. It's just that they like to have an objective and they like to work steadily toward that objective, and they want to eliminate all distractions. And you might see that if you look at, say, Mordo, who is Doctor Strange's companion, and a little further along in the walk, who's got very Capricorn energy. He has a focus. He has, I'm going to go this way, I'm doing this is my path. And when that path shapeshifts based on new information during the story of Stephen Strange's transformation from a neurosurgeon into what he will eventually become, Mordo, I remember correctly, is very steady Capricorn energy. And once he decides to walk a path, he follows every rule to that path, and he eliminates all distractions. And that is Capricorn energy. Now, Pisces energy is very dreamy. It's the mystic, it's the dreamer. It is the spiritualist. It is always looking beyond what we can see. Some people might call that transcendence. They know things without knowing how they know. They follow their hut, which I got from Alexandra Frasen. I hope I'm saying the name correctly, but I could be saying it incorrectly. But they have something called heart and gut, which they call their hut. And so that's where I got the idea from. And so they're always following their hut. And sometimes following your hut means you're going to have to make other choices that other people don't like. Meaning that they're like, you don't need to go do that. And if you're sensitive to your hut, if you're sensitive to your heart and your gut, you're going to follow it. And that's going to make you look flaky to other people when you go off to do things they don't understand. Or you're listening to your intuition, or you're listening to that other part, or that other part, a counterpart of you in another world. People are going to read that as flaky, when what you're really doing is following an ideal, because Pisces energy is the polar opposite of Virgo energy, and they still have an ideal that they're pursuing, but it doesn't mean that everybody understands them. Okay, so those are the 12 archetypes of the 12 sign archetypes. Now, I'm going to stop and reiterate this one more time. There is no such thing as a typical any sign of the zodiac. Those stereotypes exist as shortcuts, but they can be very stifling and make it very difficult for us to see ourselves in an archetype or reject it completely because it doesn't line up with our beliefs, our ideals, our ethics, our life experiences. So I don't find it helpful to say that all Capricorns are workaholics. This is not so. All Geminis are scattered. Unlikely. All Sagittarians are dogmatic. No, that's not the case. All Scorpios are ruthless. Really? All Cancerian people are moody. Huh? All Taurian people are stubborn. What? All Leos are dramatic. Are you kidding me? All Aquarians are weird. Did I miss Aquarius? I did. Let me go back and grab that for us. Aquarius, the outcast, the rebel, the revolutionary, the visionary. They're always running out to look at the future. And they're also very much aware of certain social dynamics that other people choose to ignore. That there is an in-crowd. And if there's an in-crowd, there must be an out-crowd. Who are those people on the fringes who don't get warmed by the sun? Who aren't experiencing its warm, sustaining light? And that is what Aquarius is interested in. It's like, okay, society is not perfect. It is an impartial scientific sign. It is an air sign. Air signs aren't meant to be warm. They can be sometimes. It depends on the circumstances, okay? And so we're looking at Aquarius energy. Most people are going to say they're just weird, they're eccentric. That is a stereotype. That has nothing whatsoever to do with being an Aquarius. It's merely, stereotype is merely a shortcut, a mental shortcut that allows people to believe they have a greater understanding of something that they actually do not have any comprehension of. Understand is cognitive. Comprehension involves your heart, meaning that there is life experience and feeling behind your choices, your decisions, and allows you to be in greater alignment with who you are and to make choices that are in alignment with who you are. Okay? So, when I'm talking about these signs, recall that what I'm saying is, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that what I see the signs are, or see them as, everyone else must do so. These are merely jumping off points. I wish to encourage critical thought. I want you all to think for yourselves. I want you to question everything, especially certainty. So if you're certain about something, question why you're so certain. If I'm certain about things, which by the way, increasingly I become less certain about things. I'm willing to challenge my deepest beliefs and ideals. And I encourage everyone listening to do the same. And so, archetypal astrology is, it's not entirely simple, but it allows us a great more fluidity and flexibility to better understand ourselves and make better choices. So when we're looking at sign patterns and things of that nature, excuse me, I really could have a lovely drink of tea, and I shall after I'm done here. But that's the energy. So your takeaways are that the signs are archetypal modes of expression. And so identifying your elemental balance, basically all you're going to do is going to look at your chart and see how much fire you have. How many planets and points do you have in fire, earth, air, and water? That's it. That's all you have to do. And knowing this will give you an idea of the kind of signature energy that operates at the base of your chart. Okay? And so the whole point of this is to understand this for understanding, comprehension of yourself. Okay? And so, join our newsletter, The Daily Stargazer, for exclusive insights. That is in the show notes. And we will also go in next episode with the transits in archetypal astrology. Check out our Pinterest and YouTube. Link in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening. And may your days be bountiful. But until the next time, keep your feet on the ground, your eyes to the stars. Peace and love and magic, star people.